What is up, summoners, and welcome to this new podcast. We are the Battle Spirit Boys. We don't have a name for the podcast yet, but we're going to discuss that during this podcast. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to do some introductions. So we'll start off with you, Emmy.
Sure, I'll start. Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Emiliano, go by Am or Emmy, and been playing Battle Spirit Saga since launch. TCG wise, I did play some Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger, but I was too broke to go competitive as a 12-year-old boy, so I gave up and moved on later on to Hearthstone, played some Magic, and yeah, played Battle Spirits since launch in March, went to the launch event, having found about the game like 2 weeks before, so I turned up with a white starter deck, and it didn't go super well, but I fell in love with the game. And I've been playing mainly white since then. I did go to the first Grand Open with a mid-range red build with Giganos. Was a bit weird. I did enjoy it though, which was the main thing. And then most recently, I got second place in Glasgow with a white control with Axebiter and Depths, which were very, niche peaks, but they
Incredible
worked.
result.
Yeah. And yeah, that's all from me.
What about you, Harry?
Uh, yeah, so in terms of other TCGs, I just played Yu-Gi-Oh! Really in high school. Topped nationals once, but that was about it. Um, and then yeah, for Battle Spirits, I came second at launch event with Elk White, although I was maining Depths outside of Purple before it was cool. And one Turbo Rex way before it was cool. And then yeah, I think after that, I stopped playing White. I'd a decent enough time with it at launch event, but I didn't like going to time, or not even going to time. I think I only went to time in like half of my Swiss games. But the ones where you don't go to time are still pretty close, and like it is a bit exhausting just having round after round where you're going into time. So I moved to red at that point just to try out. Like I liked its play style. It felt more aggressive and protagonistic. I played hybrid red, so the Terra Nova with Gigano and Sieg Nova. Played that for most of last format. And yeah, in terms of the other events, I've top 16'd every event except Karlsruhe. And then yeah, went XO. So Glasgow, I played purple. That was because I'd already qualified for this upcoming PT, and I just wanted to try something new because I'd played white and red quite extensively before then. So
And you ended
tried
up
purple,
going
went
unbeaten in
XO, lost to
Swiss.
Emmy in top 8.
Yeah.
Multiple cores, baby. And then yeah, I mean, I just try to play whatever I can. To be honest, I love this game. But yeah.
Nice. What about you, Kieran?
Yeah, so I'm Kieran, Sync Lyric in a lot of the Discords. I'm usually very active in those communities as well. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! For like one format. My baby was TG Stun. Just set 5, summon one dude, and just like loved the game out of skill drain. That was like the play style for me. Then I kind of moved over to Buddy Fight, which was my favorite game of all time, still is to this day. Um, I played that since like I think 2012, 2014. Had multiple first place wins. Got third place at Worlds in 2017 in Japan. And then the game died. And then I didn't play TCGs for like 2 to 3 years. And then Battle Spirits came along, hopped on it, got top 4 at the launch event with Purple. I lost to the guy who's above me, Harry. I beat him in Swiss, but then he beat me in Top Cut. So he beat me when it mattered the most. Um, and then for some reason, after that event, I've just never played Purple again. I've just moved over to Pterosaurs, and I got top 16 at Coventry. I got 11th at the Pro Tour. I got 11th at Glasgow with Pterosaurs. So we're trying to break that 11th curse, but I guess 11th at the next Pro Tour wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
wouldn't be shabby.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
and just a little bit about me. I'm a judge for Battle Spirits. I'm also a judge for Dragon Ball. and I've been playing Dragon Ball for a few years. So I've been involved in kind of the Bandai community, and when they announced Battle Spirits was coming out, I took a real interest from it because I started playing Magic the Gathering when I was really young in school, probably over 20 years ago at this point. So I played that casually, though. I have never really played competitively until I got into Dragon Ball. But yeah, no, I'm loving the community we've got in Battle Spirits in the UK and Europe. So yeah, happy to be starting the podcast with you guys. And yeah, introductions over, and we're gonna get into it now. So we're gonna talk about ban lists. Because we had our first ban lists. Bandai do love a good ban list. So first card we're going to talk about is Netherworld Depths. So yeah, Harry, talk to me. Netherworld Depths. Talk about this card. Tell me what you think about the ban and its impact on the meta that it had.
Yeah, I'll never top an event again now. It hard carried me for so long. No, I think when it first happened, I wasn't ambivalent towards. I'm very glad that the Depths is gone, but there was a tinge of ambivalence in that Depths has been out since the game's been out, but it didn't really become the overbearing presence that it did until like the Pro Tour onward. Like before then, it felt like it was getting outpaced with pterosaurs and stuff. Like it was difficult. The Axebiter would stick, but the Depths would never really stick in the red dominant format. So as the bans were coming up, there was a bit of like, well, is this too soon? Maybe players could adapt around it. But especially now that we've seen all the blue spoilers and stuff, like the Depths had to go. And certainly in terms of where it was just as a card in the game as of present, it was pretty ubiquitous. It really stifled a lot in terms of what decks could be played. You had to run Burning Force and everything. It was getting very very cluttered, I guess. And so I'm very happy it's gone, and I'm sure a lot of other people are, even though it's served me well for sure.
What do you think the positive of it being banned is on the game in general?
Well, it was such a ubiquitous effect. Like it was just any time you tapped or blocked, they'd draw. So like there are powerful Nexuses, of course, and there are Nexuses that draw a lot of cards and cards that do a lot of things, but to restrict such a fundamental part of the game is just very inhibiting for basically any deck that doesn't build into it in a way that's favorable. Like White built into it in a way that was favorable because it's quite passive and doesn't need to attack and can very quickly accumulate a quick win con, whether in the form of Dual Gun or Elk Stall or whatever it is. And purple obviously have discount for it. Green can ramp into it. It just felt like the decks that best built into Depths were by definition the best decks because of how powerful the card was. So yeah, I'm sure like you as a yellow player, you're probably over the moon it's gone.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm pretty happy to not have to play red or purple now either. Like it's a good time, I think.
For me, the biggest positive of it being removed from the format is that deck creativity has been. There's a lot more freedom now, I think, because you don't have to just worry about playing around that one Nexus, which is used in a lot of strategies. I mean, Emmy, what do you think about the ban? I know you used the card in your recent success, so.
Yeah, I think we, as a group, we discussed a lot about it, and personally, I didn't have a as strong of an opinion as the community appeared to have, for all this time, and mainly I think is because of my limited experience in TCG and just wanting to play the game. But now, to your point, I think what we've really started seeing is like people enjoying the game more and really allowing for more slots in decks to be filled. With depths as well as Burning Force not being so vital to play in 4 copies or maybe at all. We'll see. So I think ultimately, as we said, like the power of the card was exceptional. But I think, going forward, it would have been in a way been dealt with in a way or another, other than Burning Force. But I think what was the real gain here is the community gain, in terms of like how much are we gonna enjoy the game, especially now with the lore set and set 3 coming out, and we can start just as a bit of a fresher slate and think, okay, which cards are viable now. We don't need to put 8 slots already for Deaths and Burning Force.
Absolutely.
So yeah, overall, I think it was good.
What about you, Kieran? What are your thoughts on the removal of Netherworld Depths from the format?
Yeah, Netherworld Depths was that just kind of card. I think you said it as well, where if they play Depths, you need to play the counter. The only actual counter was Burning Force. I mean, set 2 brought King Vulture, but pretty much every deck was doing 4 Burning Force in the main board, and then 2 copies of King Vulture in the sideboard, and that's like 6 slots already taken up. And if you're playing a white control deck yourself, you want to beat the other white control decks that's also playing Depths, so you're probably playing your 4 Depths, your 4 Burning Force, your 2 King Vultures, so it just creates a very boring strategy. I mean, as you know, decks already play like 4 Ice Shields, for example, so decks kind of just built themselves. I think
Yeah.
Battle Spirits is quite a hard like spectator game to watch at times. Like it's sometimes a bit slow paced and it's kind of a bit boring at times right now. Um, I like Neverworld Depths just didn't help that, especially with a card like Axebiter that's got banned and we'll talk about in a bit as well. Those two in conjunction with one another just made the game kind of boring to watch. And honestly, whenever you saw Depths and Axebiter on the same board at one time, you just was like, okay, it's a kind of a boring game, but sure. Um, as a red player, sometimes people go, "Oh, what's the counter to Depths? Play red." There was a lot of times I played red and I didn't see any of my Nexus destruction, and Depths is
Yeah.
just chilling there for like a bunch of turns. Um, and also, I think one of the issues with the design of Depths was that the person, like, if you played Depths and it got answers, you're like, okay, cool. You one for one to me, sure. But if I played Depths and you didn't answer it, I'm probably just running away with the game, honestly.
Yeah, and that
Um,
was often the way of things. I think it's if you couldn't answer it, then you're just paying the price for playing the game, which really is it's just not it's not a healthy card, I don't think. And I think
yeah.
it being banned, like you say, is gonna make more people happy to play. People are going to be able to play the colors they want rather than being forced into playing a certain way. So overall, I think it's definitely a good ban. And yeah, I mean, credit to Bandai. They are listening to the community, and this is probably the most complained about card, I'd say, or it's definitely up
Yeah.
there.
I mean,
Um,
and also credit to Bandai because I know people were talking about maybe doing an errata to Neverwhere decks to make it say during one player's turn or maybe only when attacking or only when blocking. But when you start doing erratas, they're not very new player friendly as well, and it gets a bit confusing when a million cards just don't do what they say. I mean, in Battle Spirits, we already have the problem with cards not doing what they say anyway. So yeah, I'm glad they didn't go with the errata approach.
all right, guys. So let's talk about Axebiter. Emmy, you had a lot of success using this card competitively. What are your thoughts on it being bye bye?
Let's definitely talk about this card. I mean, lots of love for X-Spider. I mean, it got me to the second place recently in Glasgow, and it's just a too strong of a card for how young this game is. I think we, as a group, we spoke a lot about it in terms of being brought in the game a bit too early. I think, you know, to defend Bandai a little bit, I think the design is not like too outlandish in the sense that White definitely struggles with uh, resource generation more than any other color. So they do like White does need that kind of tempo option or control option that allows like the time to catch up with um, what other colors might have in terms of drawing cards and getting cores. But it's just definitely a non-fun card, just like Depths. It comes down, it cannot be removed unless your opponent goes -1 with a bounce, which comes from its own color, or -2 with Exhaust Nexus as a one option to deal with it. So I think like ultimately is another card that is definitely gonna enable again that fundamental part of a TCG, which is a deck building and not just defaulting on, well, this is just the best for drop. I need to play this card. Um, so ultimately, as a white player, it's a bit sad, but honestly, like I can start looking at other cards, and I've already started that can be more proactive than passive because Axebiter most of the time was just chilling there. Unless you had a suppression or infinity shield, you didn't want to attack, and so
I mean,
yeah,
the,
it
the
kind of
synergy with those two cards you just mentioned, Infinity Shield, and if you don't know, both those cards allow mechas or machine beasts to block while rested. Suppression, obviously, any unit as
yeah.
long as you pay the soul core. I mean, that just makes this card insane, really. Like,
Yeah, I think
just chewing
it's
up any hit that comes at it. It's unbelievable.
yeah, I think it was the fun part. Like I remember in Glasgow, like recently, my second round was against a green aggro that actually got top 16. I think he ended like 12. Yeah, it was a really good player, very well crafted deck. But I just had an X-Biter and I had two suppressions, and I started swinging myself because I was against the clock essentially, and it just worked
Yeah.
twice. So um, yeah, I think ultimately it's good for those reasons, and I'm sure both Kieran and Harry are quite happy about it, being non-white players.
Yeah, I mean, Kieran, this card's probably been your nemesis over the format. What are your thoughts on it getting removed?
Yeah, I mean, when we saw Axebiter, we kind of knew the card was going to be insane. It's one of the things that made, I remember, back in set one, white, the most annoying combo was probably Elk and Suppression, because that was like, oh, you can't destroy my Elk in battle, but it was like, oh, Elk's a big card, maybe it's a fair combo. Axebiter basically did that whole thing, but just on a way cheaper body, and also way less interaction that you could even deal with. At least if you're playing red, you could Volcanic Break the Elk usually and pop it off. But yeah, against Axebiter, the removal was basically
Yeah,
non-existent. Yeah, it wasn't even there. No, I think for me, one of the highlighting moments. I mean, the card was crazy, but I was sitting there at the Pro Tour. I think it was round 6 or round 7. I was watching the feature match, and it was two yellow players. It was a yellow mirror match, which sounds quite exciting, until you realize that as the game developed, I think there was a total of 6 Axebiters on the board between both yellow players.
Madness.
Granted,
I'm
you
pretty
could say
sure
maybe that's a problem
in
with
that
yellow,
game wasn't
but
that the one where they had like 7 nexuses each as well.
I think it was a crazy
Yeah,
game.
it was madness.
But the
Yeah.
fact that they were playing Axebiter, even my feature match opponent, I forgot his name. He was playing purple, but even he sided in Axebiter, so his purple deck. Like everyone was just playing it, and it's one of the best cards in that regards. Very unhealthy card, definitely way ahead of its time. But yeah, I think just the biggest problem was just the lack of counterplay with it. Um, we saw every deck was maining 2 Dream Bombs basically towards the end of the meta. Um, and that's not really a permanent fix either. It was just a temporary fix.
Yeah. What about you, Harry? What are your thoughts on this card? You never played it competitively, did you? So you played against it
No.
a bit,
You
I
wanna
imagine.
you wanna know what I think about this
Oh,
little Ute getting banned?
oh
That's
no!
what I think
That
about
just
it.
happened. Sacrilege! Wow,
And
that
that
was
brought me more joy than the card ever did.
It's gonna get unbanned next week.
that just happened,
Um,
guys.
Yeah, no, I think that it was way too powerful. I mean, having an unkillable creature this early in the game, like Kieran said, it wasn't even like it came out
It
before
wasn't
set 2
unkillable
did.
then, was it? When you ripped it in half.
It says specifically on the card that's the only way to out it. You can't Infernal Bacillus it, but the power of human hands is too
Just,
much.
Yeah, let me read that
just a
card.
disclaimer: don't do that in tournaments, guys. You will be
Let me read
disqualified.
that card.
I will call a judge. But yeah, no, it was just impossible to deal with, and I think the fact that most of the only outs to it were within its own color, yeah, it just made things way too centralizing. Again, like I like white as a color, and I had a lot of fun with it at launch event. But ever since Axebiter came out, it really centralized the color to where you would try to build non-Axebiter variants of white, but there was basically no reason to. Like, you might as well. Even a lot of aggro whites were playing Axebiter by the end, just because of how good it is as an attacker. So really, as white, you were either building it with Axebiter or building it to beat it. Like Emmy ran 2 Turbo Rex in his Glasgow list specifically because it's really good against Axebiter, being able to bounce it continuously every turn. So yeah, it was just way too centralizing by the end, and like Depths, I think we're all pretty happy to see it go.
Yeah, again, I think it's a card that, I mean, as a yellow player, I really enjoyed playing into Axebiter decks because there's nothing more satisfying than wiping a board full of 2 to 3 Axebiters, which they would always play with the Exhaust Nexus. But yeah, in reality, it's a card that really gatekeeped a lot of decks and, you know, stopped a lot of decks from doing what they wanted to do. Very similar to Netherworld Depths. So yeah, I think all in all, way ahead of its time. One thing, if anyone's watching this, Bandai do unban cards, so don't be impulsive like Harry and rip up all your copies of Axebiter, because it may become relevant once again at some point.
You got any sellotape, bro?
I don't know if that's sort of
Man,
illegal.
got blue
but...
tack on the desk like.
Deck check. All right, yeah. So moving on, we have one more card that's been fully banned. Kieran, I'm going to give this one to you. Did it deserve it, or is it collateral damage, or was it needed as a counterbalance?
So one thing I want to say, for anyone who is in the States, you can pick up Axebiters for $2 right now on TCG Player. So
Or
there you
buy
go.
it from Harry, because
if you want to have as much fun
Axebiter
as I did just then for $2.
I mean, if you buy Harry's one, you buy one get one free, don't you? So you get 2 pieces of card.
Yeah. But yeah, in regards to Oviraptodon, we were actually talking about this before. We think it, again, if this is not correct, please correct us in the comments. But I think Battle Spirits might be the only card game right now with a vanilla on the banned list. Not limited to 1, not limited to 2, but the banned list. But granted, it is warranted. I mean, Red had the best 1-drop in the game, and everyone knew that for a mile. You know, the stat lines were insane. And Red had 2 of them, you know, Ray Needle and Oviraptodon. And I think, like, the biggest issue definitely was, you know, people talk, you know, when Netherworld Depths came out turn 2, turn 3, it was polarizing. When Axebiter came down turn 2, turn 3, it was polarizing. And the thing with Oviraptodon is it would cheat out Gigano Rex to the point that it could come down turn 2, turn 3.
Yeah, I mean,
and you know this very well, Josh, but if your deck like yellow or any kind of board-centric deck, if Gigano comes down turn 2...
Yeah, I mean, that's all she wrote normally. Although they have added answers in recently with the new Godslaying card, and obviously you can use little Pentan to take out Gigano Rex now. But before, it was almost depressing, you know, seeing them be like, right, turn 2 Gigano. It's just like, okay. Yeah, I mean, I may as well just let you have this now.
Yeah, and it's such a smart hit as well. Everyone knew Pterosaurs were going to get hit. By the way, if anyone who hasn't really properly read through it, be sure to go on the official Facebook page for Battle Spirits Saga, because Bandai provided a really good detailed list of reasons for each ban or each hit. And in the Oviraptodon hit, they specifically mentioned that they were keeping an eye on Pterosaurs, and they know they could have hit something like Gigano Rex, but they didn't want to kill the deck entirely. They want the deck to still exist, but, you know, make it more balanced. And we all fully support that. Obviously, we don't want to kill decks off already.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be the worst thing to do.
Harry,
but I think one thing I wanted to mention was look out for people need to realize that things like Nexus Hazard are just way worse now.
Yeah, no, I mean, Nexus Hazard was
way
insane with Oviraptodon. That was just awful. The tempo shift, if you did that to yellow on turn 3, was almost game winning there and then.
Yeah, don't forget that Nexus Hazard does not get double reduction from Emperor Beasts for anyone out there.
Yeah,
only Pterosaurs.
Yeah, especially being on the receiving end of it. Don't let people play you. Harry, what do you think will replace Oviraptodon in the Pterosaur realms as a because there's got to be a replacement card. The deck isn't dead by any means. It's still extremely strong.
I mean, it's not straightforward, and I think when it came to the OV ban, it's interesting that we're filming this now a week after the ban list and we've had some time to test, because like my initial reaction to OV being banned, I don't really like bans where you hit a card because there's another card that's powerful, but you want to make that card weaker without hitting it. It felt a bit unfair on Oviraptodon in that respect, and for Scorch to not be hit, but for OV to be hit at first, like it stood out a bit to where, you know, I thought that maybe Scorch should have been hit instead of OV. However, having tested it a bit in this week, I think that you would look at that list, the ban list, I mean, and assume, oh well, Terra kind of just carries on as normal. It's not that big a hit, but in actuality, it's extremely impactful, and not just impactful like, yeah, on Gigano, obviously, on Nexus Hazard, like Kieran said, which is really important because Nexus Hazard is an insanely powerful card to the extent that you know, I was just running 3 to 4 of it in Terrasaur and just bodying every purple, every non-white deck basically, and even against white, you could use it to kill Rocket City through Axebiter if they suppression on the Axebiter. Like that would come up a lot. It was so good. But even Scorched itself is a lot worse now that Rain Needle is Red's only 1-drop that they can play for free. Bearded Eagle is a really good spirit, but isn't just like Bush, like you just bosh it out like you do Ovi. What, are you running Dragron Trooper now in order to try to just get out quicker? Like, is it going to skew much more into the aggro? Even a ridiculous card like Ankylosaurus Gaston, I think it's called. It's the 4 reduction red.
Yeah, the other vanilla.
With 1 core 3k. It's a Pterosaur. So, you know, maybe they go back to that to discount. As ridiculous as that sounds, maybe it goes much more in the aggro direction. But I think Red, and especially Terra as an archetype, is going to have a bit of an identity crisis in terms of how it rebuilds itself, because you can't just do what you did before, where Ovi allowed you to maintain the extremely aggressive playstyle when you did have the Scorched, whilst also pivoting into the more mid-range, leaning on Gigano, ramping into Gigano extremely quickly style for depending on the matchup you were in. Now I think it's very broad strokes in terms of, okay, you build an aggro red, or you build like a more mid-range Pterosaur, or Star Dragons, or even just like a Blazing Ball toolbox sort of thing, red good stuff. I don't think it's necessarily clear right now which red variant is the best, which is quite exciting because it has been, certainly in terms of tournament results. Like, again, I played Hybrid Red back last format because it had a good red matchup, thanks to Signova. But yeah, in terms of tournament results, it's just been Terra. So
yeah, basically.
This is a nice switch up, I think.
I think it's a good hit. I think it would have been a massive shame if they'd removed Gigano from the format completely. And slowing it down does give decks a chance, like Kieran was saying before. The turn 2, turn 3 Rex on some decks can just be a complete deal breaker. It was a immovable force that can just basically wipe your board every turn. So I'm happy that Bandai have taken the initiative to balance out the 2 top decks with all these bans. So so
Gigano is very difficult to get out now. Sorry, just quickly. And even in like say if we predict that Soul Purple is the best deck, which I think preliminarily after the first week is generally the consensus that Soul Control Purple is the best deck. Well, Gigano is really bad against Soul Control Purple anyway, unless you're running like 2 Sacred Thundering Peaks to ensure that you restand. It's really bad against it. So red is just gonna change a lot in general, I think.
But also, what Josh kind of quickly picked up on there was about, I mentioned polarizing plays. I think now probably the only one that's actually remaining is turn 2 Norman City, next turn Elephant. But that is actually quite a balanced one in the sense that you have to play a Nexus that if you get multiples, it doesn't do much, and your deck becomes a bit big if you want to get the maximum benefit. So it's a bit more of a balanced, polarizing
kind
turn
of a high
1, turn
roll,
2.
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's
Gigano's super
White
consistent.
has no resource now.
Yeah, there was no punishment for playing
you're hard
Oviraptodon.
down a card.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the cards that have been banned, and finally, the card that has been limited, Volcanic Break. I'm going to start this one off. I am a biased yellow player. I've got the yellow border. This card was a bane on the existence of Fabled Beast decks. It was the amount of dual eagles I lost to this card was unreal. But I will say that I don't actually agree with the limit. I'm used to it being a once per turn thing. I think the Soul Core limiting it to once per turn was really a balance that, I don't know. I mean, I played Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball's has quite a lot of similarities with card power to Battle Spirits, and this kind of limit to one per turn is normally enough to make a card be viable to be a 4 of. But I mean, fair enough to Bandai. They probably see things differently to me. But yeah, I will say as a yellow player, I'm happy to have it limited. It definitely, I was very stifled by this card, and obviously it's a splashable card. In a way, I think them limiting it to 1, they've kind of like maybe opened doors to people saying, look, this card's really strong.
Yeah,
you should
everyone is
probably
gonna
just
play
have
it.
one in your deck.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think,
sure.
Em?
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely out of left field, but I think it came out as a result of, you know, what is getting like hit the most out of this ban list, and how do we keep it like balanced in terms of like both playing the decks and playing against the decks. And I think even though there is that limitation of the Soul Core, is still a remove spell that still targets 3k even without the Soul Core. And 6k, it kind of hits like the majority of spirits. It will be nice to see like what is the percentage of like played spirits, and like how many get over 6k most of the time. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely easy way to punish people for undercoring stuff like Elk, for example. Elk's probably the biggest victim to it, because it's only 6k on level 2, 5 cores for 10k. I mean, it's easy pickings, because it unlike Axebiter, it can be taken out in the main step, you know. So
for sure.
But what do you think, Harry? You're a big fan. You've always been a big fan of this card. Do you think it should have been limited to 1, or do you think it's a hasty move?
Yeah, again, I think this is another one where your opinion changes after a week, where, you know, when I think firstly it was quite an innocuous thing to put to 1, just having a card to 1. Like, I don't think that's the card that people would have expected. And in general, I maintain the opinion that I held then, which is that it's quite weird to just have a card to 1 and not put other things to 1. Like, you could have put Dream Bomb to 1, you could have put Suppression to 1. I think those are all fairly universal sort of game mechanics that saw more play than Volcanic Break did. And yeah, in terms of the initial assessment of it, it was quite interesting, because Volcanic Break does provide a pretty useful generic metagame tool in terms of, if strong early spirits are dominating the game, then you can tech in Volcanic Break to deal with it. For example, let's use green as an example. They have turn 1 Ant-Man or Matingol. They can turn 2 Volcanic Break into it quite easily. Like, you can swing with Ant-Man, Volcanic Break. Maybe that kills a Dino Man that you desperately need to kill because Dino Man's oppressive. So in a strange way, it almost has a bit of an upside for red in terms of it lets Dino Man stick on the board. Having said that, I think now, having evaluated and played with it a bit, the impact that the limitation of Volcanic Break has on red is extreme. Again, like I spoke earlier about the need for red to reinvent itself, that also in large part owes itself to the limitation of Volcanic Break, because your defensive tools as red are nowhere near as good without Volcanic Break. You just have Burning Force and Feral Slash, basically, which are both 3k ranges. Flame Breath is a cute tech, but you're maining, what, like 2 of it at most. It's competing with the Burst for Starblessed draw. It really isn't enough to supplement the loss of Volcanic Break for the mana cost of Volcanic Break. Again, you can splash Dream Bomb. It's expensive. You can splash Thorn Prison. It's also quite expensive. So Volcanic Break was a really strong part of, again, if we discuss like Terra as a mid-range aggressive sort of deck as it was before, Volcanic Break was a really large part of that. So in losing it, again, red is in a bit of a tough spot in terms of how, like, Burning Force is still good. Feral Slash is really, really good right now. So red has good stuff in that direction. Starblessed Draw, really good. But Volcanic Break was that last little bit of like, okay, well, if they go wide, I can Burning Force, and if they go tall, I can Volcanic Break something out the way. Most things would succumb to it. Now I think they are in a tough spot. I haven't seen all the spoilers for next set. I don't know if they get anything quite to remediate that in the next set, but for now, yeah, it's quite tricky for Reds to figure out what spells they're gonna run to mitigate for the loss of Volcanic Break.
What about you, Kieran? How many copies of Volcanic Break generally did you run in your main board when you were playing, and how was the impact for you as a red player?
Yeah, we pretty much always ran 3 in the main board with 1 in the sideboard against things like purple. I think when I saw the Volcanic Break hit, I wasn't surprised, but I was a bit disappointed because I think, and this may not be a big thing now, but in the post about banning it, they mentioned, in strategies like pterosaurs, and basically pterosaurs the reason why it got banned. But I think it's a bit unfortunate for other red decks that kind of want to be playing that as well. These are decks that won exactly top tier, and now they've lost one of their best defensive tools. Now, granted, we're about to see one of the best new defensive spells come out in the game very soon in Floodstream when Blue comes out at the end of the month, and that is a 5-cost, possibly better than Volcanic Break.
I mean, if you don't know what Floodstream does, guys, basically you can pick any amount of cards that cost up to 5. So, say you've got 3 costs and 2 1 cost, you can pick all 3 cards. 0 costs, actually, you can add in as well, but they don't even take anything up, so you can just take out every 0 cost on the board for free. And yeah, it's a 5 costs blue spell, which I think is most likely going to be a generic card. I don't see why it wouldn't be. It's it can be using the flash step as well, which is just unreal.
Harry said this earlier about the Oviraptodon ban. There's things like Scorched Battlefield, for example, that probably would have been a more stronger pick if you really want to limit. Because pterosaurs will still, pterosaurs are completely fine. They had to reinvent themselves a little bit in the Axebiter dominated meta. The American team, True Duelist, did that very well. You shoved 4 jokers in, and bam, the whole thing was reinvented again. And I'm pretty sure pterosaurs will just reinvent themselves one more time moving into this. So it's a fair hit, but also I'm not the biggest fan of hitting cards to 1 because it feels bad now. Let's say you're playing yellow, you play your Bearded Eagle. Your Dual Eagle, sorry. You attack, and now you get Volcanic Breaked. It feels worse now because that's like, you got your 1-off. Okay, great. But as a red player, you're still going. I was gonna say, as a red player, I think the biggest thing, and people may have not realized this, but when you're playing red, you can't deal with some of the strongest cards in the game that get out of control quite fast. Like for example, like Dragon Naga Assassin that gets to 4 cores. Every time it attacks you, they're just farming you. Worker Ant-Man gets to 4k. You can't deal with that properly now anymore. So it puts more of an emphasis on things like Dynaman. That could have also been a hit potentially as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you're getting Ritual of Fire in set 3, so you can't be too upset.
Yeah. There's a lot coming in.
That'll be good.
Which we will discuss on later episodes, guys. So be sure to come back and tune in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're a new channel, so we need all the help we can get at this point. If you're still watching, thank you very much. So that's pretty much it for our discussion on the ban list. What are your final thoughts on it, guys? Do you think it's a good, positive step for the community?
I played I ran a locals literally a few days ago. We decided to. I think the ban list comes in effect this weekend. I think, or this Friday. Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, I think it's the 6th upon release of the law set.
Yeah, so we, as a locals, we actually decided to just run the ban list last week because why would you not? It was probably one of the best tournaments we had in a while. Everyone had a lot of fun. No one was getting scummed by Axebiter or Depths. Giganos weren't coming down on turn 2, turn 3. Pterosaur still won our locals, but that was mainly due to me just playing Pterosaur still because I had no other deck built. I got karmed because I got an Axebiter out of my Precipitation pack.
There you go.
TPO1, so. But honestly, if you haven't played the meta now, which I don't know why you wouldn't have, you need to. Like the ban list feels like a mini expansion within itself now, just how much have changed.
Yeah. What do you think, Em? What are your final thoughts on the ban?
Yeah, I think overall positive. I think mainly for the community, like the looking at Facebook groups as a signal, looking at the polls, looking at the posts, people posting about their list, and there's like some really creative, sometimes wacky lists that now are viable. So to me, if the result is everyone enjoys the games, everyone is building decks, talking about the game, going to locals, that's net positive for sure.
Absolutely. And Harry, your thoughts?
I'm
Don't rip
very
another
happy with
card.
it. Yeah, I think yeah, nah, I'm never ripping Depths. That card helps me too much. Um, yeah, no, I think obviously a list comes out, you can analyze the list, you can have your interpretation of what should have been done differently. I think the evidence towards the quality of a list is in the meta that happened subsequently. And this
Absolutely.
meta is looking a lot more fun, a lot more enjoyable. It's a lot more evenly balanced. Before you had, like decks that were just not even possible to play. Now it feels like, everything is a lot more even and every deck has a good chance. Of course, there are still, you know, dominant, powerful cards and combos and strategies. There always will be. But I think that it's all much narrower now compared to before, where it was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, there were these 2 or 3 decks that you just absolutely could not play against. Now it's more like how I think they intended for it to be, where a deck has a good matchup here and a bad matchup there, and a couple even matchups, and that's really the case for, every color except yellow for now. But we'll get there with the spiral
We'll get there.
tower
We'll
yellow.
get there with yellow. Yeah, no, I think it's definitely interesting. It's going to be an interesting time. Obviously, the meta's only actually for the Pro Tour, really, and then we go into a completely new set, so everything will change from there. But no, I think overall it's a positive step in the right direction. The cards that have been removed have made it more of a positive thing to be playing for a lot of people. So yeah, no, I think overall it's Bandai have done well with this. One thought I do have is I would rather that they did avoid doing too many limits. I think like like they have a lot of limits in Dragon Ball, and it's just something that I'm not on board with. I think get rid of the card, remake it in a later set, in a more balanced set, in a more balanced way. Don't bother limiting cards to one, because it's just not a great look in my opinion. But yeah, so
Imagine if you lose one of your like final rounds of like a Swiss tournament just because your opponent saw the top deck one-off limited cards.
Yeah, I mean,
it feels really bad.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about this game, which is different to Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball, you have a secret rare in every deck. Everyone can have one SCR, which is the most powerful card. They're normally outrageously overpowered. So, I'm not saying that Volcanic Break is that sort of level, but it's just sort of creating that kind of culture behind the cards. I think it should be avoided if possible. But yeah, no, we've got a few little bits to discuss before we go. So, podcast names. We need help with names, guys. Yeah, I mean, we thought about time on the round or question time on the round podcast, maybe, or
We have the Room 1 podcast.
yeah,
Table
Room One
One
podcast. That's talking about our training grounds that we use.
Yes.
We had
Bottom tables as well.
Yeah, Bottom Table podcast, Dino Man and the Boys. That was one from the other week. But yeah, no, if anyone has any, we will probably nail down something for the second podcast. But if anyone has any ideas, please interact with us below. Give us a like and give us some comments. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear from your thoughts about anything we've discussed. And if you've also got questions, we definitely, we'd definitely be happy to answer questions. And if you've got questions for specific players, we also plan to do a bunch of stuff on the YouTube. We're gonna do deck profiles and game content, and so go follow the Nexus on YouTube. There'll be a link in the description. And yeah, just look out for more content coming soon. We plan to do a lot. We got a nice community going. We're called the Battle Spirits Boys, but we are inclusive. You don't have to be a boy to be in the group. We do have female members in the group as well, so we are inclusive. Just if anyone's going down that path. But yeah, no. Pretty much, yeah. We just want to just help the community grow. We all love the game here, and that's basically also, the idea of it, really.
At 10 subscribers, Josh is gonna go bold. So I think maybe 15 subscribers.
Yeah, I don't know about
that. Yeah. if we get to
that would make me single as well, probably.
There we go.
But yeah, no. So last little thoughts. We got the Pro Tour coming up at the end of the month. Kieran and Harry are set and ready to go. M can't go because he's being a good friend and he's going to a wedding, even though he could be playing. I am hoping to be there, keeping my fingers crossed. But yeah, so you guys excited for the Pro Tour? Obviously we've spoken about this meta, which is specifically for this tournament. You looking forward to going into it?
Yeah. I mean, I went to the first Pro Tour. It was a fine meta. If anything, the meta feels very similar to the first Pro Tour. I mean, we've got green. We'll have to see how green does actually, because we've seen green being very reliant on Netherworld Depths for its hand advantage. Now, I mean, we'll talk about the Law Services soon, and they're about to get a very new Tokyo card, which is insanely powerful.
Very, very good. Yeah, I don't like that card.
Yeah, I look forward to going to the Pro Tour. I look forward to meeting everyone else there as well. A lot of people who I met at the first Pro Tour, I know they're flying over from the States. Nice. And honestly, every single tournament with this game is just such a good vibe.
So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's we always have a good time. So that's I think that's what's important as well. You always have to remember that you're playing the games to have fun. So we got one last little segment that we're going to do in the podcast where we each ask questions to anyone that's with us. We're going to be having guests as well, like I was saying. We're going to call this question time on the round. So, Harry, any questions for anyone? What's your question?
I think I'm going to ask all of you what card you're most excited to play with again now that the ban list has dropped. Maybe there's been something that's been absolute poo bojangles with Depths and Axebiter and everywhere about, but now it's pretty good. Or failing that, you can just give a generic card of the week if you think there's a card that's had a really good glow up. I'm going to say the card that I'm most excited to play with again is Iceblader Brigid. I do love me some of the old Brigid spice. Yeah, Brigid. Also, Bython, shout out Bython as well, my boy.
Bython,
yeah, really, really enjoyed this week. It's too good, man. One core draw card, insane.
Yeah, I think for me, the ban list just gives a yellow a bit more breathing space, and I think there might be a way that we can get through red, and because red has pretty much been a guaranteed loss against good players for quite a while. So the hits to red is a positive thing to me in general, just for yellow as a whole colour, not any specific cards. So what about you, Kieran?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I'm not just going to keep playing Gagano. But I do want to try out some Nova stuff. I was going to take Nova to locals last weekend. I just didn't. I actually realized I didn't have a single copy of the new Nova from set 2, the Meteor Seaguam.
Yeah.
So I just didn't take the deck. But I really like Nova. I like combo decks like cut that summon like a big flashy boss monster. It's just last meta was not the meta for Nova.
Absolutely. And M?
I was grabbing this. Let's see if you can see it. I'm sharing that excitement to play.
Oh, the bridges, the shiny bridges, yeah.
Yeah, it's really
yes.
I think
I'd show my 4, but they're in my deck.
Yeah, honestly, like I think Bridget is an example, but I think for me, generally, like more tempo cards. Like I'm a huge fan of Odin. which is the white spirit that costs 5, restands if you have a white Nexus, and bounces cost 3 when it attacks and blocks. And so I think these changes will see the meta shift more towards like a tempo and aggro meta. So I think that can be a great card, and I want to definitely explore more. Is a mecha, so we could think about Infinite Mothership and maybe Loki. Who knows? I love Loki, but it's been so situational so far. So maybe Odin for now.
Yeah, awesome. So my question, I'm gonna give it to Emmy because mainly because you're not playing the Pro Tour, so I imagine you've given it a bit more time. What's your favorite card from the new set?
Oof. Yes, actually. So now going to Pro Tour, going to the Grand Open, I've started looking at a set 3 cards, and I'm eyeing blue. So I'm looking at obviously I'm looking at blue like everyone else, and I'm also testing out some purple and green. Obviously, we've seen all the cards. I think now we're at SPR spoilers,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the best card for me is Dimensional Rift.
Yeah, what a
Especially after
card.
they showed the SPR. Obviously, everyone is talking about what you can do with Enterprise, because if you start second, you can play Enterprise turn 1 with a 0 cost.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
And Dimensional Rift. But also in set 2, there's a white card that it has 3 when block effects. And it draws a card, it ramps a core. It's called Radiant Dragon Palace Bradal Blick. Has 4 names, so it has to be a good card.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The more names, the better
rule.
it is.
And other things, I like the when block keyword. So I'm hoping to be able to play like a when block type of tempo list where a bit more control actually with the Elk, of course, the Enterprise, this guy, the Odin I was mentioning, but also
Let me just
reboot
note that
code.
down. Play Soapy Bubble Lakeside.
Yeah,
In set
exactly.
3.
That's
Yeah,
it.
perfect.
That's how you deactivate completely. But like reboot code that came out in set 2, like it's an insane card, but it didn't have much ground. So yeah, I think going back to your question, because as I kind of diverted a bit,
It was just
I
one
think
card, not your whole life story.
Dimensional Rift. Yeah, that's my TED talk essentially.
All right. So yeah, I mean, have you guys got any questions for anyone?
Yeah, I
do.
actually
Oh,
have
go
an
for it.
open question. What color do you think is going to win the Pro Tour?
That was literally my question. I have it in front of
One
me.
I play.
I'm gonna
Whatever I
say
decide.
I'm gonna be a wild card and say green.
I think purple is going to have its day. You know, I think it's just from the preliminary testing that we've been doing. Purple has shown it's got a lot of legs, and it doesn't need depths. Trust me on that. What about you guys?
I think
I
white
think
will win. I think it will be like launch event personally, but that's just me.
a more control, like a control white. You think?
I'm not sure. Like in terms of like Occam's razor, yeah, that's probably the most likely outcome. I don't think that that's the best variant of white necessarily, but I don't know how much time people have to put in terms of testing. Like I feel like white right now is quite broadly split between aggro white and control white. I think there's definitely room for something in the middle of both of those, but as to whether people are gonna brew that, like I don't know what I'm gonna play. Like I'm leaning towards purple right now, so maybe I should say purple will win. I don't know, but I think yeah, it is set up like launch event where Infernal Backlist beats most things, and then Fuller Enterprise beats that, and then Enterprise also beats red quite well. So you know, it feels just similar to how it was before in that respect.
All right, fair
Yeah.
enough. Well, thanks a lot, guys. That's all we got time for today. So thanks everyone for tuning into our first podcast. We will be doing more, guys, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and look out for more content coming soon from the Nexus. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, everyone say your byes. Yeah,
Thank you
look
for
at that.
watching.
What a gangster. Catch you next time, guys. Peace.
See you later.
Bye.